Hi, welcome to FRA's Roundtable Insight. This is Richard Bonughli. Today we have Judd Hirschberg. Judd is president at White Wave Trading, a trading company, and our partner for trading research consulting services at Cedar Gold. He has run proprietary trading groups. He has 47 years of trading experience. He has developed some awesome indicators and a repeatable process-based approach for trading the financial markets. Prior podcasts with Judd have focused on his approach and methodology and also updates on the financial markets. Today, we'd like to understand what Judd is currently seeing in the financial markets across asset classes and different geographies, jurisdictions. Welcome, Judd.
Thanks, Richard. It's always a pleasure to be with you.
Awesome. Let's look first at what your thoughts are on the major factors technically driving the markets now. Is it the interest rates, like the 10-year or 30-year U.S. Treasury bond yield, and how is that affecting the bond market, equity markets, and commodity markets?
Okay, well, let's just go back up a second. Markets are not random, and markets are symmetrical. And I do not do my work off evaluation. It's not part of my process. So all my price targets and everything I do is mathematically based. So math does not change with my process. It does not change with the time. And it's a reliable, repeatable process that's worked for 47 years. So let's just jump right into your first question with the yield curve. Here is a picture, this is courtesy of CQG, of the rising bond yields in the 30. So as the yields rose, we had a big rally in the Russell and the Dow, and I think that's going to continue. This latest little rally in the bonds, which came off of a really interesting level, was something that typically this type of back and forth happens at the end of every quarter, where people square up positions. And we just witnessed a little bit of profit taking in the Russell and in the Dow, but today's market lows were good pretty much across the board. Let's just go to a yield curve chart. And you can see it here on the 30-year, how it just spiked up above this channel line. And that line goes back, in the last year. So that's a 1-year look at the yield curve.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if we go out, you can see that it went up to the 200 weekly, spiked it, and then backed off. And that was our match for the high in the initial high in the Dow and the Russell. So, I will look at the yield curves and match it up with my price targets and my matrix sheets. Yep. In the indices. Mm-hmm. And they pretty much line up within hours. There's not a lot of discrepancy between the two of them in the movement. And there's a long-term, you can see falling yields for long-term since 81. And now it's trying to spike and put in a low in the yields. We got to see, it's going to take some time here in the next month to see if the yields are going to continue to go up or they're just going to consolidate in here. So what I've seen today over the last couple of sessions, especially today, it was very interesting, is that the XLF basically accepted these higher yields and has put in a bottoming formation. A name like Lennar, which is a home builder. Now this has just been on a huge tear all year as people are moving into the suburbs. This is a whole COVID move, a relocation move. Lennar seems to have completely accepted higher interest rates. And it doesn't look like it's going to affect their business model, at least over the short term.
Interesting. And what about other types of equity classes? Like would that acceptance of interest rates also apply to the Dow equities, for example?
Right. Well, the materials are picking it up. The transports are picking it up. The Dow, I think, is still going to my upper targets, which I posted, a year ago? I think the last time we were on, I told you where I thought the Dow could go close. It's going to go to around 39,000 in the Dow. So we've got almost another 7,000 Dow points to go before I'll be looking for this capital flow to end.
Yeah, interesting.
I don't think you've seen the high in the S&Ps. My S&P targets, my long-term S&P target has not changed. What's interesting today is that over the last couple of days, it's the DAX that's been performing well, and the Eurostoxx 50, which is all the European financials, which is not what you would expect. And I have a long-term target in the Dow. The DAX is going to do another major swing up. It'll take you over 15,000.
Are there similar arrangements happening in the emerging markets, do you see?
Let's see. What were we looking at? We were looking at Japan. And Singapore looks good. So let me go to this other page. I have not done the work on Singapore. I have not put my studies on it yet to get a specific price target, which I can do, but most of my RIAs aren't really trading it. There are a couple that are involved in this, but Singapore still looks really good. It's above its major averages, so I'm looking for that to continue to go higher. Some of the guys were involved in India, and that's still pretty bullish, especially on a quarterly look. What I found interesting is that all the China names and ETFs, the internet ETFs like KWEB and CQQQ, they all came down into their 200-day moving averages over the last 6 weeks. They've had a pretty good break. Mm-hmm. So now, I'm going to start watching China again to see if China just goes sideways here for a while and the U.S. leads. It's just one of these spreads, relationship spreads, that I'm going to pay attention to.
Yeah. And what about looking between the major indices? So if we look at the S&P 500, the Dow, the Russell 2000, any trends there happening that you see?
Well, here's Dow against the bonds. I think this is going a lot higher. And I think the Dow's going to be the one that's going to lead. Mm-hmm. Russell Bonds is trying to form up in here, and this will take a couple of days into the new quarter for this to get going. But it's the Dow and the Russell that I like. And the Dow and the Russell, especially the Russell against the Nasdaq. I think that's equal weighted Russell against QTech which is equal weighted tech. I think the Russell's a better place to be. And if you look at ETF wise, it's still the diamonds versus the Qs. So I'd much rather be in the Dow. As far as the Dow and Russell, you know, that's kind of a back and forth. The Dow versus Nasdaq started up yesterday and then it extended today. I'd look for this to go higher. So I'm looking for the Dow to really be the leader in all this.
Yep.
All the insurance companies, the credit card issuers, what I like to call a buffet trade, which is a reopening trade, which, you know, it's the casinos, the cruise ship lines, they're all getting interesting again.
Uh-huh. And do these relationships give any idea or indication of long-term trends? So like, can we make a statement that there's a secular change happening between tech stocks or growth tech stocks versus value stocks?
I would say that that's been going on for well over a month. More.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just take a quick look at the Nasdaq missed my price target by, I think, 100 points. I was looking for 14,000 in the Nasdaq and went up to 13,900.
Wow, yeah.
So from here, if you look at a weekly, it's hit my price targets. It's hit my price targets. It's achieved my price targets on the risk spreads as well, against the bonds. It's hit my price targets. There's more to go in Dow Jones against the treasuries. So the Dows can lead, and the second strongest one is the S&Ps. But given the fact that my long-term targets have already been hit off my risk spreads and everything else in the Nasdaq's not the one I want to be involved in. I think you're better off being in the Dow names going forward.
Yeah.
And this has been since the second week in February.
Mm-hmm. Are there specific categories or components of the Dow that are outperforming others within the Dow index?
Well, the railroads have been on fire. And I think even Canadian Pacific, after this ARB sell-off where they sold Canadian Pacific on the merger with Kansas City Southern,
yep,
this is trying to bottom today too.
mm-hmm.
So I'm not looking for much. I don't think there's much more downside in Canadian Pacific. I think all the rails look pretty good. Norfolk Southern looks great. Oh, let me see. You know, CSX. So I like the whole transportation sector. I mean, the ETF, the IYT looks good. FedEx is starting another leg up. UPS is trying to follow along there. You know, there's FedEx. I don't think that backs off. So I think the whole transportation area is going to be good. And plus, I think the rails and the trucking companies are going to do really good because of all the logistic problems they're having with the ships and the shipping industry in general. One, they've got crew issues by not being able to get their crews stuck at sea for some of them over a year, not being able to get inoculated, not being able to get shore leave to get inoculated. So the whole traditional ocean shippers have got big logistics problems.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's going to benefit the rails and the trucking names.
What about on other sectors like infrastructure sector and agriculture sector?
Okay, well, late date today, we looked at ABB again, which has just been a steady grind higher. It's been a good pattern. It goes sideways for a couple of months and then it starts up again. Jacobs Engineering acts well. The commodity names, I think that our friend Ira, I think that Bunge's trying to set up for another run again.
Okay.
82 is the half of the life of Bunge. So I don't usually do fibs, but I like to look at them on the really long time frame stuff just to get an idea of where the market's trying to trade to. And it just needed to digest around this area for a little bit. But this looks like it's setting up to go again.
Yeah.
The grains themselves and some of the other commodities, I think, are going to take well into May to set up again to start to go. Oil's just a big range trade now. It hit some big long-term averages on the quarterly, going back multiple years, and the monthly. This has got a lot of work to do in here before I think it starts to go again. But the names within the sector look good. And a couple of those that I like are that we've been trading actively in the room is EOG Resources.
Mm-hmm.
Cheniere's trying to bottom again with nat gas prices coming back into its 200-day averages again. So when I see the nat gas try to bottom out and accept and hold a level,
yeah,
then I'll start looking at the names within the nat gas sector. And Cheniere seems to be the best looking one right now. And the other one too is Cabot. Acts fairly well. This isn't a high volatility trade, but it seems to match up pretty good with the lows in the nat gas when the nat gas gets to inflection levels.
Interesting. And what about on specific agricultural commodities? Any thoughts there? You mentioned May generally, right?
Here's a picture of the soybeans. I mean, last night I looked at the soybeans versus the real. I looked at in dollar real and again in let me go to this other page. Here's soybeans in real. This is kind of a big sideways pattern. And what I do with it, what I'd like to do with this is look at it in terms of for confirmation to see if the beans are going to start a big move or not. So I'll look at beans in real, corn in real, which to me is stuck. Corn priced in Chinese yuan, which has been going sideways for a month and a half, 2 months. So when you have to wait for the seasonality in the grains. And that seasonality doesn't start until late May. So we've already had we've already had some huge moves this year in the grains. And now, it's just time to be patient and wait again. And I'm not looking at the grains for another month and a half.
Yeah. And finally, can we focus? Can we do a focus on the metals, for industrial metals and precious metals?
Okay. Let me go back to this other screen. Gold is just, to me, is stuck. So we'll just go through them. Mm-hmm. Gold is just stuck for me. And we start closing, $4 or $5 under 720 a couple of days in a row. Then I think that the gold will probably roll over again. In the meantime, it's not set up to do anything. It's moderately holding up against the euro. Let me give you a quick look at that. But, even today, the gold broke down against the euro. Yeah. So if the gold's going to break down against the euro, you don't want to be long gold. You want to be long gold when it's gaining on the euro and it's gaining on the yuan. And it's just going sideways against the yuan. So some of our better trades over the last couple of years in the metal have all been signaled off of gold and euro and gold and yuan.
Yeah.
And you'll see it there before you'll see it in the straight dollar chart of the gold. And I look at silver the same way. Silver came down to its 200-day moving average today. I haven't been spending that much time looking at the silver and the platinum. Ira was looking at, and Gunlock and a lot of other guys were looking at gold and against the copper at its here, let me pull this up and see if I can show it to you. Everybody was looking at the longer term charts in this.
Yeah.
Here, I gotta switch the input.
Okay.
There it is. So everybody's been looking at this 200-month moving average. This is long gold, short copper. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure that this is going to be a big trade or it's anything more than a bounce. But that's what a lot of people are looking at as a risk indicator. That just is not something that I care to get involved in. Mm-hmm. It's an interesting conceptually, but I think it's something that's devilishly hard to trade. I'd rather trade the gold off the currencies, or I'd rather trade the copper off yuan demand.
And then what about on platinum? Any indicative trends?
Well, let me just take a quick look. Well, the first thing you want to go to when you look at platinum is platinum yen. I usually look at the platinum yen chart first. And that's not enough trade location in the spread itself to make me want to do anything off the weekly, off the daily, off the monthly. You know, it's held this 200-month average here, which it's got to stay above. And I like the idea of the platinum itself. You know, on a demand trade, you know, with economic activity. But then you have to look at gold platinum. And I really haven't, you know, I haven't been trading those spreads. You know, I look at them for clients, but I have not been involved in them.
Yeah.
You know, there's platinum gold. It's back to its 50-day. So if you really wanted to make the case that the indices were going to rally, then you'd give it a go here, being long platinum, short gold here. If you're a metals trader, if that's how you want to articulate the trade, I just think there are better things to do.
Yeah. Great. Any final thoughts or overall trends, big trends or factors that you'd like to emphasize after this discussion?
Well, the first of every new quarter are when new capital comes into markets. And that's when you're going to see the new direction affirm itself. And I'm looking for an up going into the new quarter in the indices. I'm looking for risk on. And everything we've been seeing for the last week and a half is just preamble. It's, you know, quarter end rebalancing. There's a lot of capital flow back and forth, but it's all posturing before the new quarter. And I'm looking for higher prices in the Dow and in the S&Ps going into the new quarter.
Great. It's been a fascinating, insightful discussion. Judge, how can our listeners learn more about your work?
They can go to my website at whitewavetradingstrategies.com, and they can get a 30-day free trial and come into the room and listen to our conversations. We've got hedge fund managers. We've got really successful proprietary day traders. We've got a plethora of registered investment advisors. And the community goes across all trading types. We have options traders, and then Ira Harris comes in and we discuss global macro fundamental themes. We have another friend down in Australia who's brilliant. So between the group, we come up with some excellent trading ideas. And it's a good place for a lot of people to drop in if they're not sure about their risk parameters. And we help our RIAs with that every day.
Yes, it's quite awesome. Very, very powerful discussions. Oh, great. Thank you very much, Judd. Thank you so much. Awesome.
Richard, it's always a pleasure. And Thank you for having me. I love, I love your interviews are riveting, all of them.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks again.
Okay. Great. Yeah, we can end it there.